In Force Unleashed alternate reality, when you chose the dark side ending, it goes all wrong for our main character. Galen Marek doomed himself when he chose to kill Vader. Palpatine gave him a final test to kill Ram Koda, his former master, but he didn't go through with it. Instead, he chose to attack Palpatine. Big mistake. He electrified him with a strong force lightning, threw him out of the window, and also threw the ship Rogue Shadow literally on him. He lost all of his friends and hope. But surprisingly, he survived this and woke up in a sinister suit, with Palpatine openly telling him he will just do his bidding from now on, and when the moment is right, he will cast him aside like Vader. He then left him conscious during the rest of his operation, which is brutal. It really puts a dark spin on Vader's transformation scene in Revenge of the Sith. However, Galen, now Starkiller, had nothing left but to obey his new master. And partially, it was because of his new suit. Because this suit was literally put onto flesh of the wearer. Let's break it all down. Starting with the helmet of the suit, his helmet closely resembles a combination of Mandalorian and Bounty Hunter's Bush's helmet. Helmet of this bounty hunter offered voice modulator, advanced respiratory system, wide range vision and communication system. Most of this was probably also the case with his helmet, and he had a high collar and pauldron as the armor, but most of the armor on his body is made from flexible material to allow him to move more swiftly. What was also dark about this was his hands. There wasn't much flesh left there, and Palpatine left some parts of his hands intact so he could use Force Lightning, which would be impossible with full prosthetics. That's why Vader was never able to do Force Lightning. Starkiller prosthetic fingers had metal claws. This armor comes from ancient Sith tradition, but it has a few changes. It really looks sinister, but it's still practical. It allows Starkiller to do advanced movements, use different force techniques, and keeps him still in pain, so he's stronger in the dark side, as these emotions make dark side users stronger. His enemies must be afraid from the moment they saw him in distance. The claws and the helmet really gave him this menacing skeletal look. Although this is just a symbol of his last days as the Palpatine slave, with no identity and humanity, even though most think this is the most powerful version of the character, it's still the most broken one. Constant pain, stripped of identity, and psychological torture of all of it, he was more machine than man. And that brings me to Vader. As I mentioned, they share a similar scene and similar fate, being left to serve Palpatine. Let's compare suit of these two. Palpatine obviously saw Vader that he had more potential than Starkiller, and Vader's suit was limited in movement and in force powers because Palpatine wanted to keep him in check and didn't want to be overthrown by Vader. On the other hand, Sith Stalker armor enhanced Starkiller's abilities, while Vader's was slower and had to adjust his fighting style accordingly. Starkiller fought similarly than before. However, Vader's suit offered more protection than Starkiller's. There were critical spots on the Starkiller's armor that could be exploited, and durability definitely goes to Vader's suit. After this comparison, there comes a question: which suit was worse? This is really hard to say, but possibly with cybernetic modifications and armor being inserted into wearer's flesh, it may have been easier to control Starkiller than Vader. That makes Starkiller's Sith Stalker armor more of a prison than Vader's suit was, which is crazy to say. One aspect of armor that really stands out and probably creeps out the Jedi that confront him even more are the lightsabers on Starkiller's belt. This looks really insane. First of all, I think it shows how successful before this encounter Starkiller was, and he takes pride in killing his opponents. Having their lightsabers as trophies right on his belt, it could be like really scary and practical at the same time. Starkiller has many spare lightsabers to choose from if he needs to, but that's not really a big issue for him. But what are the origins of those sabers? Are they just random hilts meant to show that Starkiller killed a lot of Emperor's enemies, or can we actually figure out who these lightsabers belong to? There are few familiar faces, so let's break it all down. First of all, there is a newly constructed lightsaber of Starkiller. This saber looks really interesting and different from his previous one. It has these metal blades on the hilt, just something Sith or Darksider would totally do. Kinda looks like Darth Malgus' lightsaber, but that's not a trophy, it's his main lightsaber that he uses. The trophies are even crazier. Vader's lightsaber is the most notable one. Obviously, Starkiller takes pride in this victory. He killed Vader and that's a huge achievement. Imagine being a Jedi and recognizing that hilt. That alone makes Starkiller even more scarier than Vader. There is also all the lightsaber of Galen. He could be living with the conviction that he killed Galen Marek, and this is the trophy, the light side lightsaber of his past self. There is also part of Darth Maul's lightsaber, and I'm not sure how he got that one. As we know, Maul survived episode 1, so perhaps Starkiller could have confronted him, or maybe one of his clones, as was actually the case in Star Wars Legends, or he just found a lightsaber and took it as a trophy because he trained with Proxy, and Proxy transformed in Maul at some points. Starkiller probably hated Maul, and there could be more to that story, we don't know. Another interesting saber is Ram Koda's. Ram Koda was Galen's Jedi ally, and in alternate ending he died on Death Star. This shows us how gone Starkiller really is. Koda was his friend and Starkiller totally failed him, and even now he has his own lightsaber as a trophy. It's really crazy, the transformation of this character. There could be also some hidden lightsabers, maybe more trophies from Jedi he hunted down in past. I didn't recognize all of them, so if you caught anything I didn't in this video, let me know in the comments. These trophies are cool, but at the same time they show us a lot more about Starkiller at this stage of the story. But did you know there was another suit that never made it into the game? It was hidden in the official concept art for Force Unleashed. Starkiller could have ended up even in war state. I mean, he was already in a horrible situation, but I found alternate suit designs and they were even more disturbing. Looking at these alternate designs, Starkiller appears to be even more injured. The last one is by far the worst. He is completely unrecognizable, looking almost like a droid that strongly resembles General Grievous and his tragic fate. Some details are different, but the similarities are clear. General Grievous was fully trapped in body that really wasn't his. You can't compare it to Vader's or Starkiller cases because they had at least something, but in Grievous's case, nearly everything human about him was stripped away. Touch, taste, sensations, it was all replaced by machines, with only small parts of his organic body connected to cybernetics. He was only left with his mind that was not intact, consumed by rage and revenge. He was only a crude imitation of life. In a way, that would have been a mercy for him. It's crazy to say that Starkiller almost ended up like Grievous. I believe they scrapped this original design because it looked too extreme and it would have limited his abilities to use the Force, making it harder to keep the game mechanics intact. But fact remains, there was an idea that he could have suffered even worse fate than he already did in this dark side ending, and that is truly horrifying. It is always interesting to see villains with such tragic fates, when the only thing left in them is rage, but deep down they are broken. This video takes a lot of my time, so to support me you can like, comment, subscribe or share. I'll see you next time.